to Inside Look, an Inside Ambition segment where we take a deep dive into something happening here at Drexel. I'm Alexandra George. Drexel made national headlines last week. Sadly, it wasn't because our show was featured on Ellen, nor because Mario won America's Next Top Model. It was because a Drexel grad student got themselves into some hot water. In fact, he had been the one fanning the flames. But, you know, they don't call us dragons for nothing. Inside Ambition is anything but a show that breaks news. So you already know about the 22-year-old Drexel student named Andre Dworshin, who formed a group called Philly Fighting COVID, or PFC. PFC was tasked with leading Philadelphia's long-awaited vaccine initiative, mainly for healthcare workers. And at first, this was great news. But just 2 weeks after Philly's first mass vaccination clinic went live, the city cut all ties with the group over concerns about its data privacy policy, its sudden shift to a for-profit status, and its failure to maintain testing sites. And I know that's like a lot of red flags, but I think Philly took a page from Bachelor Matt James's book here. I mean, the exposed bra alone should have been enough to send the Queen, Victoria, home. But also, according to TikTok, she's racist. To any Bachelor producers watching this show, can we please stop giving platforms to people like this? It is not okay. I'm afraid now that Rachel is going to be this season's Garrett. And by that I mean she's going to be this season's closeted white supremacist. I'm grateful to finally have a black bachelor, but you just can't call that progress. That's like taping over a hole in the wall. Whatever, back to Philly fighting COVID. More like Philly fighting corruption. Ooh, psychology major fighting COVID and losing. Spoiler alert, the best part about this plotline is that for once the villain is someone other than Lady Coronavirus. Now let's take an inside look. Planned to talk about all the good things that Philly Fighting COVID was doing on our show. But luckily, we did not get the chance to release those segments before Dworshin went and exposed himself as a fraud. Unfortunately, President Fry was not as lucky, as he is now trying to distance himself from this project, even though actual nursing students here at Drexel helped to administer vaccines. Now that this project has been suspended, many in the city, namely health professionals, including our fellow dragons on co-op and clinical rotations, are in a state of limbo. Most received the first dose of the vaccine, but are now unsure as to where and when to get the second. When pitching the program to City Council, Dworshin called the PFC, quote, like an Elon Musk shooting for the heavens type thing, and also bragged to his staff about his path to becoming a millionaire, as he planned to get the vaccines for free from the federal government, but then charge insurance companies up to $30 per dose. That's some Reddit GameStop type-ish. Not only did Dworshin plan to pocket cash in his role as CEO for PFC, but he actually pocketed stolen doses of the vaccine to give to his friends. Let's just sit with that for a second. I know being a Drexel student can go to your head sometimes. I mean, we go to like the closest thing to an Ivy League university. We literally border Penn. But come on, bro, that's a whole nother level. Dworshin confessed to stealing doses on the Today Show in what was his first TV interview since the fallout of the scandal. I know, we tried to snag him first, but we just don't have that kind of budget. And if this all wasn't enough, Philly Fighting COVID also changed their data privacy policy, allowing the company to sell private user data, including items such as name, age, address, health conditions, and, this is true, access to the very first TikTok you posted. Sorry, Courtney, I know you tried to delete your take on the water is coming from the toilet trend, but it's out of your hands now. Dworshin claimed, however, that he had no intention of selling any information. He said the newly acquired for-profit status of the company was only meant to help fundraise and handle the costs of running clinics. I wish I could come up with a joke like that. According to WHYY, former PFC members came forward and said that people there were much more likely to be bragging about how much money they were going to make rather than how much they were going to help the community. But as a Drexel student myself, I gotta say, I understand why Doroshin is so concerned about his dollar. Doroshin also defended his decision to inject his friends despite not being a registered nurse. In fact, he's the complete opposite, a graduate student studying psychology. He said on Today that he administered 4 doses which had been left over and were about to expire. Really, bro? Not trying to let things go to waste? What are you supposed to do with a degree in psychology? He said, quote, "I stand by that decision. I understand that I made that mistake. That is my mistake to carry for the rest of my life. But that is not the mistake of the organization." This entire situation raises many crucial questions, mainly about how a group of young, unqualified students, no offense, was able to run the first mass vaccination clinic in Philadelphia. Not a single member of the clinic's executive team had a doctor of medicine or a postgraduate degree in public health. Doroshin himself is still in the process of completing a 5-year psychology program here at Drexel, a fact that reflects poorly on our university and all the students here who are busy not exploiting a global pandemic. Wait, why are you looking at me like that? I created this show for the people, not just to boost my resume. The clinic has administered nearly 7,000 shots to Philadelphia residents, making up 8% of the city's total first dose count. As a resident of University City, surrounded by tall, dark, and handsome medical research centers and hospitals, I gotta ask, how could this have happened? Maybe bad things do happen in Philadelphia. Well, it seems that the city had a reason to have faith in PFC, as before Doroshin was making headlines for his mistakes, he was praised for his positive actions. Doroshin formed Philly Fighting COVID during the early months of the pandemic, when he and a group of Drexel friends decided to make face shields with 3D printers and donate them to local hospitals. The group then morphed into a pop-up COVID-19 testing center during the summer, then pivoted to its current iteration, vaccines. Which all sounds really great, but what happened to that 2 to 3 year experience requirement for an entry-level position? The lack of transparency and expertise on Doroshin's part is worrisome, and may even have harmful effects on vaccine distribution in the future. This story confirms the nightmare of those who don't trust the government or city officials, and for those that were hopeful and trusting about the vaccine, this is a glaring disappointment. According to records obtained by the Philadelphia Inquirer, Deputy Health Commissioner Dr. Caroline Johnson has resigned in the wake of it coming to light that she gave an advantage to Doroshin in the bidding process for the city's largest vaccination site. Apparently, suspicious emails were involved. When are people going to learn that nothing is safe in your emails? Why do you think Mario stopped answering my calls? He saw all the seductive letters I emailed to UPenn's Quaker mascot, but I promise it wasn't real. His 2019 makeover just had me confused. Mario, I promise I will never love anyone else like I love you. Please take me back. I think that I'm watching too much Scandal because I have so many ideas about why she would have given this opportunity to a psych major over literally anyone else. Is it sex? Drugs? Death? Johnson even went so far as to give Doroshin advice on his application, telling him to go in conservatively with $500,000, which is about equal to a quarter's tuition here at our beloved institution. President Fry made it clear on the message he sent out on January 28th that the university is in no way affiliated with Philly Fighting COVID. He also said that we are thankful for all the healthcare workers risking their lives, every day to fight this virus, which is a message we would like to echo here at Inside Ambition. In all seriousness, while I'm happy that Lady Coronavirus is not at fault this week, it is still so disappointing to be covering this story. We all need to do better. We finally have a vaccine, a way out of this palindrome. This just goes to show that at the end of the day, all we can do is our own part to combat this parabola. Wearing masks, social distancing, and doing our part to breathe just a little bit less. We want to hear from you. What do you think about this situation? What tea do you have to spill about PFC? And moreover, how does this situation affect you? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, to stay up to date with all of our content, make sure to follow our Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Happy Friday, Dragons, and welcome back to Inside Ambition. And thanks for joining me on this week's episode of The Main Report, the weekly news rewind so that you don't get left behind. I'm Remo. And on this week's episode, we're going to cover some cool national, local, and Drexel-specific news. So let's dive right in. For our national news story today, let's talk about Denver, Colorado. Very exciting stuff. And no, we're not talking about the state's vivid landscape of mountains, forests, high plains, mesas, canyons, plateaus, rivers, and desert lands. Nor are we talking about the state's world-renowned production of pinto beans. Although, I might write that into next week's episode. Denver, Colorado actually tested out new police protocol advancement that could save lives and prevent tragedy. According to a 6-month progress report, a program that replaces police officers with a mental health care worker and a paramedic has shown fantastic results. Under the Support Team Assisted Response, the STAR program, police were not dispatched when responding to mental health crises and substance abuse calls, such as incidents involving poverty and the homeless. Instead, healthcare workers are equipped with the training and expertise to handle these situations and were called to the scene. Of course, all calls they responded to showed no evidence of violence, weaponry, and criminal activity. Over the course of the program, healthcare workers responded to about 6 calls daily, Monday to Friday, approximately 748 calls total. These calls included narcotic incidents and mental health episodes, and none of these cases required help from the Denver police, and no parties involved were arrested or seriously injured. Doing this helps police officers respond to calls that directly involve law enforcement. Most mental health crises are solely a medical issue and should not solely be a police issue. The police should respond to crimes. It protects people in crisis and creates a safer community. Programs like these can help build a path over what has been broken. There is a clear need for reform after how much mistrust has been created between the police and the citizens. The police chief wants to expand the program to all neighborhoods, making it 24/7 rather than just their all-day model that they did during this testing period. San Francisco made a similar stride in October 2020, announcing the police will no longer be called first for nonviolent crises. Removing the police from nonviolent psychiatric and behavioral crisis calls is not light work by any means. Calls like these account for more than a quarter of 911 calls. That number grows much greater when you account for complaints surrounding homelessness. Considering large police departments are shifting practice, many smaller departments may follow suit. Overall, it is never too soon and it is never too late to make a change. Now for some Philly John. Some good news for small business owners. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf signed new legislation that will pass over $900 million in relief payments to things such as businesses, schools, and individuals requiring rent assistance. The bill was passed this past Friday and was unanimously approved. This money is coming from a mix of federal aid, in addition to funds for state workers and hospitality industries. The aid will be divided by county population, meaning a large percentage will be coming to the Philly metro area. Moving along, as we reported last week, Philly has cut ties with the organization Philly Fighting COVID. This has led to the city of Philadelphia to start opening their own vaccination centers, 6 of them to be precise. Talk about trying to make up in a big way. Some grocery stores and pharmacies will offer vaccines to older residents as well. This news comes after Philly Mayor Jim Kenney directed the Philly Health Department to open new clinics after the whole Philly Fighting COVID fiasco. However, because of the high amount of people and the low amount of doses, it may be a while till everybody gets vaccinated. So far, they have opened their first clinic as of February 3rd, which should lead to them expanding their distribution sooner. Meaning, as more doses become available, more people will have access to them. And onward to Drexel news. Let's uplift some mutual aid and community organizing happening here right at Drexel. On January 14th, the Be Smart 10-week entrepreneurship program concluded its 2021 sessions with the commitment of over $250,000 to support early stage and small businesses owned by women of color. Given the opportunity to pitch their businesses for loans and grants to fund startup costs and expansion. For example, 2 businesses receiving loans are Advocate for Me, a Black-owned childcare center that provides high-quality programming for special needs children and their families, as well as Flourish Bake Shop, an Asian American and Pacific Islander-owned bakery offering high-quality custom-baked goods. The program, consisting of developmental workshops, had 5 small business owners move on from the program with a well-developed business plan, pitch deck, and capability statement. And within the past 3 years, the Be Smart program has committed over $132,000 in loans to participating small businesses and entrepreneurs. Where a high percentage of participants are people of color, minorities are receiving the recognition and aid they deserve. But that is all I have for you this week, friends. From Colorado police reform, relief bills, vaccine clinics, and female empowerment, a lot happened in our world this week. Thank you for spending your minutes with me, and I hope you will join me next Friday for another edition of the Main Report. Be well.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the DAC Recap, the show where we recap all things Drexel and Philadelphia sports. As always, I am your host, Luciano Duffy. Make sure you like and subscribe below. Now, let's jump right into it. Drexel traveled east in a back-to-back road stretch versus the Pride of Hofstra. In their first game, Bickerstaff led the Dragons with 18 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds. Drexel ended up edging out Hofstra 73-71. On Sunday, it was a different story. Bickerstaff had 18 points once again, and Butler even was able to grab 13 rebounds. However, these weren't enough, as Drexel ultimately fell 79-74. The men's basketball team, while they break coming up, as their upcoming games have been postponed. For Drexel's wrestling team, they have finally hit the floor with a 35-9 victory over LIU. Many Drexel wrestling Dragons have their eyes set on the NCAA tournament. After the women's homecoming games got postponed last weekend, this weekend will surely make up for that. On Saturday, the Dragons will fly down to Delaware. However, on Sunday, Valentine's Day, the Dragons will return home to the DAC in what will be their senior day and homecoming all wrapped up in one. The best part about this all is that you can watch it live at 1 p.m. on NBC Sports Philadelphia. The Flyers have dropped 2 straight to the Boston Bruins. However, were able to put up 7 goals to blow the Capitals right off the ice. The Flyers couldn't handle their own heat, however, as forward Clyde Glocks and defenseman Justin Braun were placed on the NHL COVID-19 protocol list last Tuesday. This caused the second matchup between Philly and Washington to be canceled. Meanwhile, for the Sixers, the MVP campaign is still going strong. In the Sixers' last two games, Embiid dropped 37 points in a loss versus the Blazers and 33 in a win versus the Nets. And then on Tuesday night, he had 25 and 17 to help the Sixers beat the Sacramento Kings. At this point of the season, Joel is fourth in the league in points and is leading the league in PER and win shares. With the Sixers still atop of the Eastern Conference, expectations are high for the Sixers as they head out west next week. The Eagles have acquired their final piece of their new coaching staff. Jamel Singleton comes to the Eagles to replace running backs coach Deuce Staley. Andy Reid's Chiefs were unable to win back-to-back Super Bowls. However, former Eagles running back LaShawn McCoy did in fact win back-to-back Super Bowls on teams that gave him 0 snaps. As for the Eagles' current roster, all eyes are on Wentz. The reports nowadays say his days in Philadelphia are so small you can count them right on your fingers. The Bears and Colts are the two teams that have the strongest ties to Philadelphia and subsequently are the strongest links right now. The Eagles will hold out until they get the price that they want. We will keep you posted on all of the trade rumors and draft news. The Phillies have signed shortstop Didi Gregorius and pitchers Chase Anderson and Matt Moore. Anderson comes from the Blue Jays as a right-handed pitcher who put up a 7.22 ERA and a 6.16 FIP. Gregorius returns to the team on a 2-year deal, which is 1 year longer than his 1-year deal that he signed last year. Keep the pitching kelp coming, Phillies. And that's all for the DAC Recap. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Hey Dragons, it's Paige here with your weekly Thunder Index, where we discuss all things science, storms, stars, and sustainability. Per usual, let's head into this next week of weather. It looks like we're going to have another chilly week with the low of 21 degrees and a high of 36 degrees. And if you thought that snow was over, think again. We could potentially be getting up to 4 inches of snow within the next few days. In addition to the cold temperatures, there'll be a little bit of sun, so get out there and build a snowman as they won't be melting anytime soon. Now moving up in the sky and into the stars, let's recap on the last week of astrology and what it means for you. On last Thursday afternoon, a new moon occurred in the sign of Aquarius. In the sign of Aquarius, friendship, brotherhood, group activities, humanitarian activities, and group projects will be highly focused on. With this new moon in Aquarius, new beginnings in all of these aspects are highly likely right now. This is a time where you should solve problems that require thinking outside of the box. Look into the future with a brand new, positive, and hopeful vision. It's time to brainstorm and socialize. Focus on giving a helping hand. I highly recommend reaching out to people in your social groups and in your community and recognizing the importance of social networks and friendships. If you've been recently thinking about an old friend or wanting to reach out to someone new, now is the time. Give them a call. Heading back down to earth and onto Drexel's campus, let's take a look at Drexel's most recent COVID numbers. This past week, the week of February 1st, Drexel performed 2,400 tests with only 18 coming back positive. That comes out to an astounding 0.8% positive test on campus. Compared to previous weeks, these numbers are really low, but due to the weather, on Monday and Tuesday, testing was disrupted. This, however, does not change the fact that the university is reporting a record low number of cases, so keep wearing this mask, Dragons. While we are here down on Earth, let's talk about going green with Paige's Plant of the Week. This is a new section of our show where we talk about sustainable plants, both indoor and outdoors, that help keep our planet clean. In honor of the Chinese New Year starting this Friday, we have chose the Chinese evergreen. You probably have seen these plants before, whether alive or fake.
Did you actually know that most fake houseplants are modeled after the Chinese evergreen plant? This is a fantastic plant to have around the house because not only does it add a great accent piece, it keeps our air clean and healthy. They also make an ideal piece of vegetation for first-time plant owners. They are slow growing and can survive extended periods of time without water. These plants also thrive in low or medium light, so they are perfect for apartment living. But be careful, if you have any pets around, keep them away from nibbling on these leaves. They are highly toxic. When kept as an indoor plant, these beauties stand about 2 feet tall, and when they're cared for correctly, they can last an entire generation. But don't let this stop you from planting them outside too. And that is all of the storms, stars, and sustainability that I have for you this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you aren't already, and click that bell so that you get notified every time we upload a new video. It's always thundering in Philadelphia, Dragons. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Lizzy Friedman, this is Inside Ambition, and you're on 34th and Art, the place where we talk all things arts and entertainment in and around Drexel University. This week we're taking a look at Pull Back the Curtain, a new Philly theater podcast produced by Entertainment and Arts Management senior Margot Catalonia as her final thesis project. A common graduation requirement for many Drexel students is a senior project, or a thesis. These projects are worked on the entirety of a student's senior year and culminate in a presentation in their final term, because Drexel loves to give you a challenge right when you see the end of that tunnel. Senior projects are a great way to encapsulate all you've learned at your time at Drexel and share that with the world. And you get to gear it to exactly what you like and want to do. Totally not stressful at all. Pull Back the Curtain informs next generation's art managers about marginalized genders' voices and experiences in the theater world. The she, hers, and the they, thems of this world have been silenced for way too long. It's time to let those voices ring out. I personally love podcasts. Big shout out to Michael Barbaro from The Daily of the New York Times. Love you, Mike. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite podcast is, and if you need any recommendations, I've got a long list. Podcasts are the future and the present of receiving information. And to talk to me further about this podcast, I have the ever-brilliant creator, Margot Catalonia, here with me today. Hi, Margot. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Lizzy. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So what inspired you to do this project?
Ooh, great question. Well, I knew for a senior project, I did not want to do a show. That in a pandemic, that was pretty much the only thing I knew. So I kind of considered what are my other options in a pandemic that would be safe. And a podcast was a big thing that could serve as a project. So a lot of things happened over the summer in Philly theater. Some like sexual assault allegations came out, also like the social justice movements of the summer. A lot of things were happening. And there were a lot of conversations in a Philly theater Facebook group that I'm a part of. And a lot of the conversations made me think about what Philly theater is doing correctly and what we're doing maybe wrong or what we could be doing better and where we want to see it going forward from here. And I wanted to give artists an opportunity to talk about that for themselves and have us as next generation arts leaders learn from them. So not just going into the industry and being like, all right, I kind of heard that this happened here and like you had a bad experience, but like let's talk about solutions and where we want it to actually go in this industry from here.
Yeah, I think that's really terrific. And I think that at Drexel, like with EAM, I mean, we both know like that's something that we talk about a lot is like how do we like really enact change. Yeah, I think that's really awesome. And I remember hearing about all that stuff in the summer and being like, oh my God, like I can't believe this is the theater world that I am trying to work in. Like,
yeah, especially for young leaders, it's like, okay, where's my place in this? And a lot of it is kind of like, okay, listen to your elders, listen to the older generation because they are in it. But I wanted to bridge that gap a little bit more and like have that connection more.
Yeah, I think that's really incredible. And a little bit kind of on the same note, what was it like to kind of do your senior project during a pandemic? And I know you did alter your course for that, of course. But yeah, what was that like?
It's been fun. I think it actually, because I decided I want to do a podcast, it lends itself really well. If we were in normal times, like I would probably invite artists into the studio, like that MIP uses, or have higher quality equipment available. But there's still ways to record a podcast from your own home and make it safe. So I'm grateful that I found a way to make it work. But yeah, I wanted to do a show, was going to do a show, kind of realized this is not what is best for me, and kind of wanted to also pick a project that I could do on my own, so that I wouldn't have to rely on anyone else during a pandemic in case anyone gets sick. So a lot of it was just like determining a lot of different factors, and what was the most plausible financially, and what I was also still passionate about, and how I could make that work.
Yeah, I think it's really amazing that you're following those safety guidelines, and you were able to do something that, like, with everything changing, like, you can still have it happen. Yeah, I think that's really great emergency planning on your part.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was part of it too, of like, I talked to the artists a lot of like, oh, how much do we want to talk about COVID? Because you have to think of it like, in this current context, yeah, it's pervasive and it's all that's happening and all we know. But like, I want this to also be something that you can listen to 2 years from now. And like, I don't want it to be all about COVID too. So we do talk about it a little bit, especially like the accessibility part that COVID has lended itself to in a good way. But a lot of it is like, okay, this can live on past the current time. So like a senior project in bigger scope too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. And I mean, it's also like it's up in like the internet verse forever. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important for people to be able to like come back to it and like still understand. Yeah, and then that also goes into my next question. What are you kind of hoping audiences kind of get out of this?
Yeah, it's a great question too. First, I hope that, so I have two audiences really. So the first audience is like you and me, like young arts leaders, next generation arts leaders who are coming up in this industry, and not just theater, it's theater specific, but like arts as a whole, there's still the same values that you can take from it. So our age, and then the secondary audience is kind of just Philly theater in general, like listen to the artists that are around you. And even though they're giving advice to younger people, it is still applicable. Because each project you work on is kind of like you're that young student again. So it's very interesting. But I hope it's to inform that generation, first and foremost, of like, these are the experiences firsthand. This is what I can learn from it and take into my account, whether you're going to be a production manager or a marketing person, like or even a performer. It's something that like in every facet you can take and be like, okay, well, now I'm working with an artistic director, and I remember one artistic director saying on this podcast about this thing, so I should watch out for that. And then also like as a means of connection, like if you're a freshman in EAM and you listen to the podcast and you hear like Gracie Hoffman talking about marketing and you're like, wow, Gracie's really cool, I want to talk to her. Like every artist gives their contact info at the end, or like ways you can reach them. So it's also a way that you can be like, hey, Gracie, I heard what you said on the senior project podcast that you were on. Like, I would love to talk more about it with you. And that could even like turn into a co-op or an internship. So a means of connection as well for that generation.
Have there been any, has anyone that you've interviewed like really like sparked your interest about maybe like a different kind of position that you thought about?
Ooh, I don't know. I think it's really interesting hearing from those that are on the performance side, because for me, I'm on the production side. I've done like the admin stuff, but like the creative performance side is like the one thing that I'm never really involved in. So hearing from performers is super cool. Also, you'll find a lot in the arts in general that artists are performers, but they'll also be like marketing or an admin thing. Like they're never just one thing, which is also really interesting. One of the more fascinating conversations I had was with Eli Lynn, and they are a non-binary trans intimacy director and fight choreographer. And intimacy direction is a really new field. Like, you know a little bit about it because we had an intimacy director on She Kills Monsters.
Right.
But it's really new in theater. Maybe from like 2018. It's only 2021. Like, talking to them was really cool because we never learn about this career in EAM because it's so new. So yeah, that was really interesting. And I don't think I would do it myself, but it was just cool to hear how I can support them in their work as like an administrator.
Yeah, definitely. I remember the first time hearing about an intimacy like director was in She Kills Monsters, which we did in like 2019. I feel like with the arts, like more and more like positions are being made every day, like with what's happening with the world. And that's really interesting to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and like how we adapt to it. And I feel like in each conversation, it's always someone talking about how they're adapting to the situation. So yeah, intimacy direction is just like one of the tiny ways that the arts field is adapting. It's really cool.
That is really cool. I'm excited to listen in on that episode. So my next question, how has this podcast and this process kind of given you an insight to like the theater industry that you're about to step into in like a few months?
Yeah. Oh God, it's given me a lot of insight. And like the good and the bad for sure. Like that's the whole point is like, I love Philly theater. This is like a lot of what I know in theater, even though I didn't grow up here, is here. Because that's when I started getting into theater. But there's also really bad stuff that we need to be aware of. Like the systemic issues that come up, the casting issues that come up. It's really good to hear about it from hopefully a future administrator's side that I'm coming from as like, okay, I can enact change at that level. Especially hearing from people who have similar jobs. Like as a stage manager, when I was talking to Pat Adams, a really cool stage manager, like an amazing Philly theater person, she talked a lot about how her take and perspective on the role of stage management has changed over the years, and how she is also a creator in the room, and she is just as much a part of this artistic process as everyone else. And that's something that I really loved because I always thought stage management was like, okay, sit back, do the paperwork, let the artists do their thing. So it was really nice to hear like, no, I also have a role in that process going forward. That's something I can bring to the room if I stage manage again after college. And then that's also something it can apply to an administrator management position too. Like you still have a role as an artist, no matter what you're doing, even if you're not just on the creative side.
Yeah, that's something I definitely noticed also, like coming into the EAM program. Before college, I identified strictly as a performer, you know, an actor, like all those things. So coming into Drexel, I was like, oh, so I can only be either a performer or I can be an administrator. Like I can't be both, but it's like, no, like you totally can. Yeah, like most theater professionals have like a bajillion titles after their name because you can do so many things because they're so correlated. Yeah.
No one's ever just one thing. And it was something that I had talked to Joe Vito Ramirez, who is a non-binary performer and props person, which is really cool. And they were saying like, no, we need arts administrators that are courageous and bold and like won't just do the paperwork. Like you also have a role in this. Like, and it was great to hear that from a performer. So it's not just like the administration side being like, no, we have a role. It's like, no, the other side thinks that we have a role too, and we do.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I like love to hear that because I remember like being so worried about like, oh my God, I can only be one. Like, yeah, and I'm realizing that it's not that linear at all.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I really only have one final question for you, and that is, how can we tune into your podcast once it comes out?
Yes, please listen. It will be coming out, the first episode will be coming out next Wednesday, February 17th, and you can listen to it pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. So there's an Instagram called @PullBackTheCurtainPod, and the link in the bio will take you to all the links about the artist and where you can listen. And I'm distributing the podcast through Anchor, And then Anchor is a distribution platform that sends it to Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. So as long as you get to Anchor and search that, you can find everything else.
And we'll definitely have all of the information for Pull Back the Curtain right on the description box below and everywhere else people can find it. Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me here today and talking a little bit about your senior project. I can't wait to tune in next week. How many episodes are there actually?
There are 13 episodes. There are 14 artists, but one of them is like a duo episode. So 13 episodes, 14 artists.
Gotcha.
Such a little thing is that I added our friend Vita Manilang is my 14th artist that I just added like last minute. And if you don't know Vita, they are awesome. They have done a lot of shows here with the Co-op Theater Company. And they're a psych major at Drexel, but they do a lot of art stuff. But they will be on one of the podcasts later. So tune in for that too, for a little Drexel insider.
Yes, we love Vita. Okay. They're so amazing. I'm so excited for that one too. They always have such brilliant things to say, so I'm sure it'll be great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Margot, for coming on 34th and Art with me. Good luck with your project and with the rest of your time here at Drexel.
Thanks.
It's really so amazing to see more and more content being created by marginalized groups in our society. Every time I hear a white man talking about his success, especially in the arts and entertainment industry, 5 years of my life gets shaved off. And with that math, I might be dead soon. Senior projects allow students to leave that lasting impression that they want to leave at this university that they've spent so much time at, and that has seen them at their very, very best and definitely at their very, very worst. Be sure to check out Pull Back the Curtain podcast on Instagram at Pull Back the Curtain Pod and let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at inside_ambition and subscribe to us right here on YouTube for all the latest. I'll see you right here at the same address next week.
Hi, welcome back to Inside Ambition. My name is Emily McAndrews, and this is Drexel Update, interviewing students here on campus. Today, I'm going to be talking to Peter Loof, the president of Drexel Theme Park Engineering and Design Group, also known as Drexel TPED. But first, make sure you guys go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. Hi, Pete. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. All right, so I guess let's just start off. Why don't you tell me a little bit about you and what you do in TPED?
So I'm a third year mechanical engineering student here at Drexel, and I'm the current president of TPED.
Cool. So what kind of things? So obviously your group's all about theme parks and the engineering design side of it, obviously based on the name. So I guess tell me a little bit about what you guys do as an organization.
So we like to do a little mix of both like social events and also a lot of professional events as well. We compete in competitions. We quite frequently have guest speakers from companies like Walt Disney Imagineering, Universal Creative, some really big names out there. We have some alumni who currently work there as well. So we try to stay connected with them to help our members work their way into that industry if they want to. Or if you just are interested in theme parks, we have our weekly general body meetings, and we'll usually do like fun design prompts or little presentations about things involving the industry. But overall, we try to help our members achieve what they want with the club, whether that just have like a group of friends or find a job at places like Walt Disney Imagineering and Universal Creative.
Super cool. So you say you have a lot of guest speakers. Who are some of your favorite guest speakers that you've had?
I would have to say we just recently had one of our alumni come in. His name's Justin Petrangelo. He currently works at Walt Disney Imagineering, and he told us a bit about, I'm not exactly allowed to say a ton about it because they always have a lot of Disney's crazy with their NDAs, but he's been doing some really cool stuff that you've definitely seen in the parks recently. So just being able to hear about like how things are made from him. And then in the summer, we also had two more of our alumni who are also working for Imagineering. And they told us like stuff where they've even had to go to Paris to work at Disneyland Paris and stuff. And work just getting to hear from them is really cool, and the behind the scenes of everything. But yeah, those are like some of my favorites.
That's really cool. Getting to hear from people that work in Disney is super cool. So definitely something really interesting to check out. You also had mentioned that you guys do competitions. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do in them per se?
Yeah, so we've got quite a history of competitions. A few years back, we actually got into the finals of Walt Disney Imaginations. It's basically this competition Disney hosts every year, and the top 6 finalists get all invited to their headquarters in Glendale, California, which is right like outside of LA. So some of our members actually ended up getting the finals, and that if you're in the finals, you're pretty much guaranteed an internship with them, and that's actually what led to them being able to work for Walt Disney Imagineering. And then another big competition that we compete in yearly is Ryerson. It's held at Universal Orlando every year. We've been competing in that since it started. And we've won it. We've gotten first place in a few of the different categories, like quite a few times. Last year, we got second place in one, I believe third in another, and then one of the individual competitions our member actually won. So we do. So also with that, you get to go down to Universal Orlando. It's just a lot of fun being able to go down there. You're given like 48 hours or something to compete in, to come up with they give you design prompts for rides or retheming things and stuff like that. But it's overall a really cool experience. And we're currently competing. It's not a competition this year, but we're doing an adapted version of it, in which it's not really a competition, but they're just judging us for future competitions. And also those people judging us are big executives at places like Universal Creative. So getting feedback from those people and also just getting our names in front of those people is really good for us. I know in the past, some of our members have actually gotten interviews just from one of the judges liking the way they thought for one of the design competitions. So yeah.
That's a really great experience that you've all been able to have. So I guess how are things different for you all during quarantine? Have you guys been able to keep doing what you do?
In all honesty, it hasn't been too big of a difference. We kind of just moved everything online. Our general body meetings weren't too hard to move online. It was just kind of doing the presentations and stuff in an online environment. We did miss out on a few things. Like we usually do a spring trip every year to either Six Flags or Hershey Park. Sadly, we weren't able to do that, but hopefully we're trying for next year. We actually are going to be able to do both a fall and spring trip. So that helps out even the members who are on spring summer co-op who might not be in Philly to go on those trips too. So that's the only like big thing that's stopped us. And if anything, it's actually helped us a little bit, because the two main big hubs for our industry are Orlando and LA. We were able to connect with some people that we normally aren't able to, because a lot of these events have moved online. So it's helped us in some ways and hurt us in a few others, but we've kept the club going on, and we got a lot of extra guest speakers because of it. So
Well, that's really great to hear. Glad to see that you're still doing well in these crazy times, doing it all online. So if anyone is interested in getting involved with the organization, how can people do so?
So most of our communications go through our Discord. Also, all of our events are posted on Dragon Link. If you'd like to join our Discord, you can reach out to us at drexelpeephead@gmail.com or any of our socials. We're on Instagram, it's Drexel's TPED with an S in between the Drexel and TPED. And then Facebook, we're just Drexel TPED. So if you DM us on any of those either, we can send you the link to the Discord. And also we announce all of our events on there. But to get usually the Zoom links, you have to be on the Discord. So yeah, and also we're always looking for undergraduate ambassadors and stuff. So you can get onto our e-board pretty easily, whether it's just to be like shadow some of the higher positions to get into a position for the future. We like to really help people get those things on their resume, and also getting the experience within like just managing organizations is always good. So
That's great to hear. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for coming to talk with us today. We've really enjoyed having you on the show, and best of luck with everything with TPED this year.
Thank you. You too.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for watching Drexel Update. Make sure that you guys go ahead and like and subscribe the channel, and you can find all of Drexel TPED's information in our description below. See you guys next week.